You know, in the history of expensive cinematic disasters, the Rings of Power will go down as the biggest. You know you're gonna make us look stupid if this season ends on a high note. Well, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it, dummy. We've all seen the same scenario play out in the same fashion multiple times. Popular IP brought back to life with modern ideas only to break bad. And Rings of Power ain't so different. Speaking of recognizing patterns, this episode has been the same shit with some different characters. How about you enlighten us then? Ooh, I will. But there's two things I want to discuss first. First of all, I never expected the last video to blow up the way it did. So thank you for the support with the likes and comments. Also, thank you to everybody who joined our pseudo cult, aka subscribe to this channel. I really didn't expect people to enjoy listening to my boring ass voice and ridiculous opinions. Oh my, you finally sound like a human being with feelings and emotions. It's nice to cleanse your palate of this asshole persona you got. Shut your goddamn mouth. That's my reality check. Speaking of palate cleansing, after watching the god-awful episode 3 of this shit show, I decided to watch the extended cut of Fellowship. And well, I ended up watching the whole extended trilogy. All 12 hours of it. And guess what? It's even better than I remember. That's the upside of being exposed to shittiness. It makes you appreciate the good things you took for granted. But there was another reason why I decided to watch Fellowship. I wanted to watch it with a nitpicky eye. I genuinely wanted to pick holes at it. And guess what? I actually found more than I imagined. And that applies to any movie you watch, even the great ones. But 3 minutes down the line, I forgot to nitpick further. Because I was entertained. And then I had a moment of revelation. Why was I capable of picking holes in 1 hour of the Rings of Power continuously, while I couldn't do it for 5 minutes straight in Fellowship? That's hate watching in my dictionary. As much as I'd like to, I won't take a giant shit on your opinion like I usually do, cause you kinda have a point. You see, the Rings of Power antagonized the fans months before release. And I covered that in the last video if you wanna get the full picture. But the short version is, with the rise of social media, people are now capable of voicing their criticisms, and corporates feel obligated to defend their product. What's happening on and off the screen isn't separated as it was in the old days, where companies just made movies, hyped it up a bit, and people either enjoyed it or didn't. But either way, it was judged on its own merit. So when companies raise their defenses, that means they're expecting a war. And when wars are fought before they're meant to, they're already lost. Which brings me neatly to watching the Rings of Power. You see, before watching Fellowship, I knew what I was in for. I was sold on the idea I'm about to have fun. I was gladly willing to suspend my disbelief that this is fantasy. This is fiction. This was a story made up by a guy decades ago. Even when I wanted to pick holes at it, I couldn't because I was immersed into the story. Hence the word immersed. Because you see, life as a whole is just recurring transactions and trades. Tit for tat. Scratch my back, and I'll take your back and perform a quick-time animation and teabag you. Scratch my back, and I'll scratch yours. So there's this hidden contract, this secret deal between you, the viewer, and the filmmaker. I'm willing to suspend my disbelief if you give me something decent to watch. I'm willing to lend you my brain for a couple of hours if you can entertain me. If you don't, I want my hours back. And since I can't take them back, I ain't giving you my brain anymore. And that's where the Rings of Power failed. It didn't sell the idea of a fair trade. It didn't give the audience enough to suspend their disbelief, neither on or off the screen. I'm still waiting for the review of episode 3. Shut up, I'm in charge here. I'll do it when I want to. Anyway, let's get to episode 3. What the? We begin this episode with Galadriel and Soybrand on the ship. She wakes up well-dressed and well-fed, and then she goes to the upper deck and demands to speak with the manager of this ship. And I thought to my not-so-significant other self, have some fucking gratitude. These guys saved your life. Well, it turns out the manager of this ship is Elendil. Yikes, who made this armor? Anyway, they're headed to Numenor, followed by a long, wide, sweeping shots of CGI Numenor. And credit where credit's due, it looks fan-fucking-tastic. Upon arrival, Galadriel demands to speak to the manager of this kingdom. So Galadriel introduces herself in a familiar style. I am the scourge of the orcs, the world's most famous resting bitch face, commander of the Northern Armies, Olympic medalist in swimming across oceans, played by Morfid of the House Morbid. And my name is John C. And then Halbrand introduces himself in a funny way. Where have I seen this before?
This is Jon Snow.
So Galadriel and the Queen are in a dick measuring contest of who's biggest bitch. And of course, it's Galadriel. And the Queen accuses Elendil of treason because he brought an elf home which he found in the middle of the sea, by the way. What was he supposed to do? Let her die? And she highlights that his name means elf friend. But she promotes him like 2 seconds later, so none of that matters. Apparently, elves aren't welcome in Numenor for some reason. And how did Galadriel choose to approach this? By acting like a condescending bitch barking orders at everyone. A strategy even Sauron himself knows that it's not the best approach. So Galadriel makes a remark that Elendil saved them from certain death. Well, if you knew it's certain death, why did you jump, you dumb bitch? Anyway, she's confined to the grounds of the palace. But she escapes because, of course she does, no one holds Galadriel back. Then Elendil takes her to his part of the island into the Hall of Lore. And on the way, she was happy to ride a horse. Now, there were some theories online why she was happy, but I think I got the right one. Remember when I said she was constipated 99% of the time? I think horse riding moves your bowels a bit, so there's your 1%. Anyway, in the Hall of Lore, Galadriel, the best detective in Middle-earth, figures out Sauron's plan from a piece of paper. Speaking of Sauron, he's obsessed with forging for some reason, but in Numenor you're gonna need a license. So Halbrand goes to the DMV, pickpockets some dude who has this license coin. But they come after him and, let's just say we see a bit of his not so shady superhuman powers and dark side. Back in the Orcs' gulag, the elves are captured and forced to dig tunnels. Although I'm not sure I'd call these tunnels. They're more like giant open holes you could see from miles. Anyway, they kill one of the elves and wow. This scene was so emotional that I felt goosebumps in my ass. So their escape attempt lasts about like 5 seconds before all the elves get killed. Except for this guy because he has plot armor. And he's taken to Adar, whose this episode is named after, but we don't get to see him. And finally, the fucking Harfoots. When I said they were unnecessary, that was an understatement. Now they're sick fucks too. Talk about character development in the wrong direction. So Discount Frodo almost gets decaravaned because she led Discount Gandalf to their camp. And my god, who the fuck wrote this line?
Miss Brandyfoot is young, with as much hair still to grow on her toes as sense between her ears.
So her family's caravan is sent to the back, instead of being decaravanned. Meaning if you fall behind, well, you're fucked. Because they can't slow down or wait or something. But worry thyself not. Because they'll have a ceremony where they pretend to remember you, although they left you to die. Damn, talk about digging yourself a hole in real life, Amazon. Because that's the exact same thing that you do. Well, Ricky Gervais summed it up perfectly.
Apple, Amazon, Disney. Well, you say you're woke, but drama about the importance of dignity and doing the right thing, made by a company that runs sweatshops in China.
And that's the not so eventful events of this episode. This episode has the same problems as the previous ones. The plot is moving 1 inch at a time. For fuck's sake, move your ass. The show is just painfully boring. The music still played non-stop. The characters are bland except for maybe Elendil, who instantly got reduced to an errand boy, along with his son Isildur, who I think is a future dropout, but he's gonna defeat Sauron at the same time, so figure it out yourself. And his sister, who sounds like she was accepted into college. And I don't know how, but I kinda felt bad for Discount Sam when those sick motherfucking Harfoots left her family or friends behind. And I don't know how to feel about the idea that they found that somebody who died of bees was funny. I mean, wow. What a sympathetic group, actually. And the main problem is still the main character. Good Lord. She's an awfully obnoxious, insufferable, unlikable bitch. I don't think I grinded my teeth this much even with Captain Marvel. This series so far has been sometimes style with zero substance. I honestly don't know what they were doing all this time. I mean, they spent $1 billion on this? Honestly, if I wasn't reviewing this show, I wouldn't watch another episode because this is fucking torture. But in the end, tell me what you think in the comments, hit the like button and join our pseudo cult. But after all, what do I know? I'm just a schizophrenic taking a shit who occasionally snaps. Peace.